Jennifer, and I said, well, we have it already.
Right.
It's slow, why are we changing?
Yeah. I never.
We just had to fix payroll.
No, we're good. Good. Anyways, don't need any incidents.
Okay, so who's missing now?
Alina went to the restroom, she was right there.
Waters told you.
I don't know where she
What?
is at.
When wants lobster?
Oh, don't know. Yeah, she's the only one that requested any rules on it.
She's the only one that requested it so far.
I'm changing it.
So where did you put us on the dock? On this level?
I put us on the page on the right-hand side, but like closer to the spiral part of it. Where'd you put?
Oh, well, what page was that? The beginning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the right-hand side, right about where the outwards started.
Yeah.
I think we did that pretty good here.
Yeah. We
Just
still have
obviously-
silos. We still have a lot of silos.
I know it's your,
Good.
yeah, your thing.
Funny, not only my fault.
I know.
But she
I know, no, but
Yeah, and you know what, 10-year anniversary.
a lot better than we used to be.
Yeah, her and her husband moved out
I'm
at
like-
the time.
You and I are good. Huh?
You know, that's the irony of that is sometimes the more professional people are more likely to find yourself in the silos, more conscious effort made to create that.
Yeah.
It's never an indictment on an organization, it's just something you're constantly cognizant of and aware of.
Yeah.
For a while.
All right, let's see.
Are we still like dispersing or?
And then I call her mom
being
here.
here?
Whatever. We got a 45-minute break, so
Yeah.
either you want to deliver here, you can take it
Okay,
wherever you
we're
want.
like, they didn't know that, because you have
No.
silverware and all that stuff.
No, I'm just
know that.
last minute. Okay,
Listen to, right?
who is, there's Alina, and it's just Kim. I thought she was, I didn't see her even yet.
I'm here. Got this covered. It's good.
Kidding, of course.
Maybe just tell Alexis to verbal it and then give me that list, and then I'll get it added to the triple C thing.
No, this is her, but I'm
That
actually
makes
in a
sense.
meeting right now. Can you call me back later? Okay, I have your message. Thank you.
That is the squeakiest floor I've been on this week. I'm very aware of the fact that I want very clean. Restrooms, if you want to clean restrooms, I've been in a while.
Oh,
That's good to know.
Didn't you say
Yeah.
you
All
come
right. Just went in there this morning.
The four different shoes I wear react different.
Yeah.
Some days I'll do that too, walk. There we go.
It's like you don't like to hear yourself walk.
It's kind of weird, it is weird, I know.
It's like, wow, man, squeaky walk. I don't even know what that means.
I think we're all like tunnel vision on it because we have this.
Well, yeah, whatever you get used to, right? Suddenly it's not even relevant anymore. All right. We can dive back in. All right, now, this is where we left off, okay? So what I just had to go back and put the flash drive and transfer over, so sorry about that. But it gave us a good time to take a break, and it was about time anyway. So if you remember, where we left off was we were looking at the applications of mindset. So we saw the power of mindset on situational awareness. We saw what happens with an inward mindset, which wasn't good. We also saw the power and impact of mindset and outward mindset on time and efficiency and getting things done. And now we're going to look at outward mindset as it pertains to influence, okay? And so this is chip part 2. So we're going to revisit chip again. So now we all have this idea in our heads of who chip is, or I should say was, but let's go ahead and see what happens to chip's influence, okay? All right, cross our fingers here. Ready?
He is a guy who I would never even think of talking to about a problem.
Chip came in as a guest speaker to talk about the work he does in SWAT. When he first walked in, I thought to myself, this training is going to be bad. until Chip was done with his segment, and this other officer from another department really saw him and how much he had changed.
Since he's been exposed to the material, he has completely changed. Like we talked about with this squad, not only has he changed, but he's tried to influence the people around him, and he's a completely different person.
That made me think, okay, this training is worth something, and now I'm really in.
It took a while to get everybody on board. It really did. And I know I didn't change overnight. It's something that you don't change overnight.
We always ask people in class, okay, so why are you here? And we had his officers who worked with him directly in his sector said, I don't know what you did to him, what kind of Kool-Aid he drank or whatever, but I want some of that.
A constant pushing Chip of guys, let's try this.
But you see it work, and you start trying it, and then you use it more, and you get the guys around you to use it more, and then you realize that it's much easier to be that way.
We got away from these massive tough guys coming in and raiding houses and becoming like an overwhelming force. And we've kind of started to treat people, as I think Chip told me once, treat them like your grandma and grandpa.
You get deep within the philosophy of what it means to you, but all it really does is exposes you to an opportunity to be responsive to these heroic people that are around you, to let them teach you. Because that's the amazing irony of it all. It's like they're teaching you. They've got this knowledge inside of them. They may not even be aware of it.
Some of the things I've learned from Chip, talking about not necessarily condoning illegal behavior, but understanding, where it comes from.
As their character improves and strengthens, it attracts other people of high character. They want to be part of that.
Watching him kind of evolve into what he is now has been very enjoyable. Because Chip has a lot, he has a lot to give.
What he's teaching from the Institute is working, and it's everybody follows it.
He's passed off a lot of responsibility to the members of his team and to all of us who work here. And in my family life, I have a great relationship with my sons. I can't even explain it, how great it's been. My relationship with my brothers, to be able to hang out with my brothers like I do and to really value them.
He instills this sense of team within this unit. It comes from leadership, there's no doubt about it, because Chip takes care of us.
It's funny because I have seen a complete 180 change. It's about helping the people that he's around, and seeing the transformation in him, it's amazing.
All right, what'd you see?
But he changed his mindset about what they do, rather than going in and just running into people's homes.
Yeah, there were a couple of times where they talked about the way that he was kind of coaching people how to look at others, right? Do you remember a couple of things that he said?
Treat them like your grandma.
Treat 'em like-
Correct.
Yeah.
Just valuing where, if something happened, if it's the illegal stuff, then it's, look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Maybe why it happened.
It's bringing that human part to who you are and seeing the people you work with in that way too.
Yeah. It was almost like there was this awakening, huh? I mean, he was so focused on his job, and he was doing a great job of it, but then it's almost like he suddenly became alive to all these individuals around him and started to see them as people. That it seemed like his influence grew, or grew small, grew much larger, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about him a little bit differently here than in that first video, right?
And one woman said that, she didn't think his seminar is gonna be any good until they kind of dismissed him in his other mindset, but they started taking him more seriously.
Yeah, he hadn't even done anything yet. He hadn't even uttered a word, and they'd already, because again, that mindset, people react more to our mindset than they do to our behaviors and our words. And it's interesting because we know that for ourselves. We know that we react that way toward other people. We know that I'm more alive to your mindset than I am to the words and the behaviors that come out of you. But sometimes we don't internalize that to the point where we recognize, well, we did the same thing with people. So Chip's influence grew. Now it's interesting because again, the tone is very different here, and it can become very easy to get into this trap of, all right, well, that's great, so he's being nice to people. Well, obviously that's not what it is. But if you look at the results, Chip's team, that SWAT team, over the next 3.5 years, sees more drugs, money, and guns than in the previous 10 years combined. Lawsuits, which used to be frequent and regular, fell to 0 over that same period of time. And you go on and on and on again. In other words, the hard indicators of success all turn around. And so you see that power of incorporating an outward mindset. And it comes down to that simple thing of seeing others as people. And because you see them as people, their objectives, their issues, their headaches, their challenges, their opportunities also matter to me. Okay? And you see the impact that begins to have. Because as you become more alive to those individuals, and you see them as a person, you begin to act differently. You begin to act entirely differently. And then you begin to see the influence as it spread to others as well, right? It's incredible what can happen within an organization.
I liked he said that high character attracts high character.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? That's a powerful statement, isn't it?
Just keep thinking about Sheriff Joe. You know what I mean? Think about the influence that he could have.
You know, we're usually our biggest barriers to success, to influence, to efficiency. It's usually always internal. So the irony is, as we begin to look outward, those issues here begin to dissipate and disappear. It's that outward focus, that outward mindset. Okay. So all we're trying to do here is establish the impact that an outward mindset can have on those 3 critical areas. We could just easily go into sales and to other areas also. But in this instance, we're looking at that outside awareness, situational awareness, the speed and efficiency and productivity, and then of course influence as well. So, you go through all of this and you see, all right, I think everybody agrees. Would we prefer to be functioning organizationally and individually with an inward or an outward mindset? Which is preferable? All right, begs the question, why on earth would anybody ever function in an inward mindset? How do we get ourselves into an inward mindset to begin with? Okay, how do we kind of crawl into that box where we stop seeing people as people and begin to see them as objects? How does that actually take place? So now we're going to walk into how our mindset can actually become it, because then we become more sensitive to the cues and the indicators that we're going in that direction. Okay? So we're going to walk through this here. So we're going to build framework number 2. All right, we've already talked about 2 different ways of working, an inward versus an outward mindset. Now we're going to take a specific situation in a work environment. Okay? We're going to go ahead and say, all right, here's Jack. Suppose that I notice that my coworker Jack would benefit from information that I have. Say he's walking into a presentation, he's going to make a presentation. So, I don't know. But I'm cognizant, I'm aware of the fact that he's missing some critical information that I have. Okay? And so this occurs to me that I can give him this information. Because I see Jack as a person, I know it would be helpful if I gave him some information. So, if I'm operating from an outward mindset, well, I desire to be helpful, right? Okay. So, if I desire to be helpful, what would it occur to me to do? Share the information, right? Okay. Elementary school, right? Okay. So I decide, my behavior then follows my mindset. See how that happens? Because I have that outward mindset, something occurs, and then my behavior follows the mindset. So I decide I'm going to go ahead and share that information with Jack. We're walking through this real quick. Okay. Now, here's a fascinating question. What happens if I don't? What happens if I decide to not?
You may not be as successful, and it may not reflect on the organization as a whole in a positive way.
Organizationally, there could be a serious difference. If that presentation happens to be going to meeting with some donors or some outside stakeholders, something else, so hugely detrimental to the organization. We're going to go into what would happen within me. Okay, you're absolutely right. The external ramifications of that they're apparent, they're obvious. That can cause some serious damage. But what happens if I'm just entirely focused on my results? And if I choose in that moment, that sense, that notion comes to me to go ahead and help Jack out, but I betray that, and I decide not to. What happens? What happens within me?
Might start to feel kind of guilty about it.
Yeah, why would you feel guilty? Because you knew you did something
Yeah,
bad.
we withheld information, we were being
Yeah.
selfish.
Do we like to think of ourselves as bad people? No. So it's interesting. What we end up doing is actually looking for justification for the reason we just betrayed that sense. To see that invitation to see Jack as a person to be helpful, we begin to feel this need to be justified in that. Because we can't tolerate the notion that we did a bad thing or we're a bad person, right? So let's see how this actually happens, okay? We're going to actually walk through it here. So let's say, Jeff, I'm going to use you as an example. Exactly opposite to me on the table here. So you and I, you are now the one going into the presentation, okay? So I'll get out of the way here in just a second. Jeff is going into a pretty critical presentation. Now, I have this choice in this moment. If I'm operating from an outward mindset, what will it occur to me to do in that instance? As you're walking into this meeting and I have information that can help you.
Share the information.
Give you the information, right? I know that Jeff will be more successful because he's more successful, the organization is more successful. It's the right thing to do. I'm going to honor that sense and I'm going to go give it. Now, if I go ahead and do that, I haven't betrayed anything at all. I continue to have an outward mindset toward you. I continue to see you as a person. You benefited from that. But collectively, I see us all benefit. Well, let's go ahead and assume that instead, I chose to betray that. Okay? Now we're going to watch and see what happens here. Hopefully you can see that. My handwriting is horrible and I've moved it down low. We'll work through it. All right, so let's think about what happens when I begin to betray this sense. Okay? Now, think about it. In that moment, we talked earlier about that need to be justified. So now that I've betrayed that sense, I've withheld that information from Jeff, and I need to be justified, how might I begin seeing Jeff as an individual in order to justify my decision? How might I describe Jeff? Sorry?
Maybe as a threat.
Okay.
That's why you.
To see him as a threat? Absolutely. Maybe that was the indication, right?
Maybe incompetent.
Yeah, incompetent. Why would I see him as incompetent? Yeah, I had this information. Why didn't he have it, right? He's a threat. He's incompetent. What else? What are the ways that I might begin seeing Jeff now that I've betrayed that sense and we can be justified? Sorry? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay. Is he industrious, hardworking? Lazy, right? I mean, I found the information. Shouldn't a competent individual also find that? So I'm going to start seeing you as lazy. What else? How else might I describe him in order to justify his decision that I've made with all this information?
You don't see him worthy of success.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not good enough to do this. He doesn't deserve to come across well. Yeah. All right, not worthy.
With an L.
Yeah. You see how this is now, because I've put Jeff in these terms, I'm beginning to feel justified in withholding that information, right? He's a loser, he's incompetent, he's lazy, he's not worthy, he's a threat, he thinks he's more important than he is, who knows whatever else. But suddenly I've cast this entire situation in a light that justifies me withholding that information now. How would I start seeing myself in this instance now? I betrayed the sense. Powerful. Superior. Yeah, obviously I'm better than him. All right, what else? Well, hardworking. We can go through almost some of the other names. I'm valuable. Hardworking.